So I want to add another installment to the Lazarus on Lithium project, which is a theological analysis of bipolar disorder. And we're going to read some scriptures from the book of Job. So in short, the book of Job starts where God declares Job blameless and upright, and Satan challenges God and says, "Oh, Job only supports you because his life is going so well." And then God gives permission for Satan to destroy Job's life and then destroy his body. And Job is left with his flocks destroyed, his children killed. And he spends the majority of the book lamenting with his three friends, trying to reconcile why he was deserved of this fate. But he never curses God. Then in chapter 38, God shows up. And we hear directly from God in response to what Job has been lamenting this whole time. And God appears to him out of a storm cloud, and he starts to explain to Job how Job's small position in creation is actually within such a vast, incomprehensibly dense network that it characterizes his suffering in a different manner than he was interpreting it before. So I'm going to go to the scriptures, and in the beginning, God is talking about the nature of creation. So in chapter 38, verse 4, he asked Job, "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know." And then as we go into chapter 39, he starts to talk about the matters of the natural world and how these all fall out of man's understanding and man's influence. So it's 39, verse 1. "Do you know when the mountain goats give birth? Do you watch when the doe bears her fawn? Do you count the months till they bear?" So the Lord goes on to talk about many different animals in the animal kingdom that operate outside of man's influence. But then in chapter 40, he introduces us to two creatures that are characteristically different, Behemoth and Leviathan. And we're going to spend this video talking about Leviathan. Well, what are Behemoth and Leviathan? If you read the scriptures, they're described of these animals of incomprehensible size, terror, strength. There's nothing in the natural world that we've observed so far in modern science that bears the exact descriptions of these creatures. And I believe that is because these creatures function as paradigmatic archetypes of different facets of creation. So just what is a paradigmatic archetype? So a paradigm is a thing that all things can be compared to. And an archetype is a general category for a group of things. So if we're talking about in Jungian hero mythology, the character of the wise old mentor. The wise old mentor is an archetype. And we can see that across different stories. Gandalf, Dumbledore. And then we can see Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original trilogy as an example, as one of these things, and he's emblematic of the entire broader concept, everything that can fit within that definition. So that's what Job and Leviathan are. And I want to make a broader point about Mania, but first what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you the entirety of chapter 41. Because I want you to just try in your mind envision the scale of what's being described here. So in chapter 41, verse 1, it starts, "Can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook, or tie down its tongue with a rope? Can you put a cord through its nose, or pierce its jaw with a hook? Will it keep begging you for mercy? Will it speak to you with gentle words? Will it make an agreement with you, for you to take it as your slave for life? Can you make a pet of it like a bird, or put it on a leash for the young women in your house? Will traders barter for it? Will they divide it among the merchants? Can you fill its hide with harpoons, or its head with fishing spears? If you lay a hand on it, you will remember the struggle and never do it again. Any hope of subduing it is false. The mere sight of it is overpowering." And I'm going to skip to verse 12. "I will not fail to speak of Leviathan's limbs, its strength and its graceful form. Who can strip off its outer coat? Who can penetrate its double coat of armor? Who dares open the doors of its mouth, ring with the fearsome teeth? Its back has rows of shields, tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between. They are joined fast to one another. They cling together and cannot be parted. Its snorting throws out flashes of light. Its eyes are like the rays of dawn. Flames stream from its mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from its nostrils as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. Its breath sets coals ablaze, and flames dart from its mouth. Strength resides in its neck. Dismay goes before it. The folds of its flesh are tightly joined. They are firm and immovable. Its chest is hard as rock, hard as lower millstone. When it rises up, the mighty are terrified. They retreat before its thrashing. The sword that reaches it has no effect, nor does the spear or the dart or the javelin. Iron it treats like straw, and bronze like broad wood. Arrows do not make it flee. Slingstones are like chaff to it. A club seems to it but a piece of straw. It laughs at the rattling of the lance. Its undersides are jagged pot shreds, leaving a trail in the mud like a threshing sledge. It makes the depths churn like boiling cauldron and stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. It leaves a glistening wake behind it. One would think the deep had white hair. Nothing on earth is its equal, a creature without fear. It looks down on all that are haughty. It is king over all that are proud. Now think about if that's a creature. I mean, science fiction has not accurately conceived a creature of this scale, of this terror, of this capacity. We haven't observed anything like that on the face of the planet. But this is wisdom literature in the Bible. It's one of the wisdom books of the Bible. And the point that's being made here is that it's creating a picture of a concept. If you were to take all those scriptures I just read you and put them into a concept, we can think about what fits into these molds. War. War ever present in the period of time that the Bible was being written. It's still present now too, but it was ever present. Now war becomes one of these things where it's a concept where you can't stop it. You can use a club or a spear or a javelin or an arrow, and you can't stop it. You can't pull it in with a fish hook. You can't put war on a leash and make it a pet for the woman in your house. And now we're talking about a concept. So how about illness? Particularly before the advent of modern medicine, illness would have been something that these pre-modern people were completely subject to the vicissitudes of. They couldn't stop it. No matter how much they wanted to stop it, they couldn't stop it. And it would have this terror. It would have this terror like if illness is dragging its belly along the ground and leaving this wake of utter destruction of dead parents, dead children, broken homes, crippled towns behind it. That's what Leviathan is about. And I've thought that if one were to make a modern take on the story of Job, I think that the free market economy would be a pretty good example of what Leviathan could be describing. Because it's fast, it's harsh, it's global, it's impersonal. Your entire livelihood can be stricken away from you by a change in market conditions that happens a different continent away. And you find yourself subject to the vicissitudes of these systems. Let me get water quick. So I was studying Job, reading over his description of Leviathan, and I couldn't help but find a lot of similarities to Mania. Bipolar 1 mania, I think, can accurately be characterized as Leviathan-esque. So I'm going to pull from the scriptures. I'm going to draw some comparisons about this condition to what's written in the book. So can you pull in Leviathan with the fish hook? Can you pull someone out of mania? Absolutely not. They're going to keep going until they either die or get locked up. You can't just pull them out. Will they keep begging for mercy? No. Manic people are so self-assured and so grandiose that they can leave the whole world behind and still be completely certain in their decision making. All the weapons listed here, harpoons, spears, clubs, arrows, none of that makes a difference to a manic person. I mean, in one manic episode, I ran a marathon with no shoes on my feet, and no water in a city that I didn't know. And I was able to successfully traverse the 26.2 miles in that condition. No clubs or spears or arrows could have stopped me. Flames streamed from its mouth. Now we're talking about pressured speech, grandiose thinking. People who talk to manic people often describe it as being hit by a wall of speech, like a physical impenetrable wall is being propelled out of someone's mouth onto an observer who can't make heads or tails of it. And I remember back when I was manic, I mean, I could talk so fast, light speed, laser focus. My rationale didn't make sense, but even a highly intelligent person couldn't understand what I was saying fast enough to be able to respond to me in real time. Its undersides are jagged pot shreds, leaving a trail of mud like a threshing sledge. Now this is definitely accurate, because when you're manic, you just blaze forward on this path of glorified self-destruction, and you tear up the ground behind you. You leave your friends, your family, your money, your legal status, your partner in your wake as you just carry on forward into oblivion, into the wilderness. The folds of its flesh are tightly joined. They are firm and immovable. Being manic is like being invincible. It would take literally a bullet to stop you. And honestly, if you took a bullet somewhere non-vital, you probably wouldn't stop anyways. Can you make a pet of it like a bird, or put it on a leash for the young woman in your house? That's the fantasy, right? Because with hypomania, you get such an added benefit in your cognition, your intelligence, your articulation, your athletic ability, and all these different things, your creativity, your spontaneity, your comedic timing, all of that increases, and it seems like the most great thing in the world if you were able to put that on a leash and keep it at a distance, and every time it goes too far, just pull it back, just pull it back. You can't do that when you're bipolar. It's impossible, because as soon as it gets out a little bit, it starts to move a little bit faster, exponential growth, and it's completely out of your control. When it rises up, the mighty are terrified. I mean, manic people are scary. They will scare people. They could hurt people. I mean, you could ruin a relationship. You could shatter someone's trust. And I've done this. Someone who meant a lot to me and I meant a lot to them shattered their trust in an instant. Terrified, terror. That's the results you leave behind. And then the last thing I'll say, I'll end on verse 34. It looks down on all that are haughty. It is the king over all that are proud. And that's the final clincher that we put on this. Because who is proud? Who is proud is the man or woman before the manic episode who has their life together, who has everything figured out, is moving in the right direction, who already moves at such an accelerated pace that ramping up that velocity at first doesn't even seem noteworthy. Oh, they care more, they're moving faster, they're getting smarter, they're working harder. All these things seem natural evolutions of just the progression of the phenomenon of the successful, but ultimately the proud. And then mania brings the proud low. Because no matter how high you were, when this stuff hits you, you're going to go down. And you are not going to have control over your descent. You are going to crash, and you are going to rip everything apart. A retreat by prolonged fire against your own life, against your own finances, against the people you love most in the world. Mania looks down on all who are proud, including me. This is what bit me. So you can imagine my surprise when I'm reading over the scriptures and I find my exact condition displayed here in Job. So what does God have to say about this? God is explaining to Job how small he is, how his suffering that means the world to him, that's ripping his life apart, fits within a structure so much bigger, incomprehensibly complicated, that his perspective is completely flawed. And not only is it so infinitely complicated, it reaches all the way to the heavens, it's ordained, it's governed by a sovereign entity, a sovereign God. And when God truly puts all this to Job, he covers his mouth and refuses to speak. So what does it say in the scriptures? This is in chapter 41 once again. These are the verses I skipped over. In verse 10 it says, "No one is fierce enough to rouse it. Who then is able to stand against me? Who has a claim against me that I must pay? Everything under heaven belongs to me." Everything under heaven belongs to God, including Leviathan, including Mania. So when you sit there like Job, first day out of the psych ward, and you see that your life has completely fallen around you, it's collapsed. Everything is collapsed. There's people you love more than anything who will never talk to you again, and you sit there like Job and you tear your robes and you mourn. I felt like that. As a result of all this stuff that I went through, I empathize with Job. I feel like I can relate to Job, because all that suffering in the book, in the Bible, Satan works through fire, wind, these roving criminal bands to destroy Job's life and bring him to that place. And bipolar disorder, as you may or may not know, isn't induced. It's not caused by drug use. It's not caused by paranoia. You can't become bipolar because you get way too deep into internet conspiracy theories or anything like that. This is an inborn condition that onsets typically in late teens, early adulthood. And you got it. From the moment you're born, you got it. From the moment God knit you together, before you're in the womb, I knew you. You have this chink in your armor that will only show up later in life. What am I trying to say here? Mania, Leviathan, everything under heaven is mine. You go manic, you go off in a blaze of glory, you burn brighter than the sun, and when you come down, you only find ashes surrounding you. That's a story all of us can relate to. No, rest easy. Try and take some comfort in the fact that even that suffering falls in this broader world of infinite complexity that even with modern science we can't begin to fully understand, and that there's a God who is sovereign over all of that. Your suffering, my suffering, fits in a bigger picture that we don't see. But my comfort that I would like to offer based off of this theological analysis is that, I guess simply put, it wasn't for nothing. Thank you, and God bless.